I don't know anything about the Epstein files, I've been fully exonerated.
We are once again demanding that now President Trump, who is in the Epstein files almost more than anyone else besides Ghislaine Maxwell, answer our questions. This is not a hoax. He has not been exonerated, and we have serious questions for President Trump.
In the sequel to But Her Emails, President Donald Trump and his allies have spent months trying to steer public discussion from the Epstein files away from his own frequent mentions in the documents toward, broader partisan narratives about opponents like the Clintons.
Well, we know he was on the plane, not only on the plane a couple times, multiple times. He traveled internationally with Jeffrey Epstein. And he was on the plane called the Lolita Express because it supposedly had a bed in there where Jeffrey Epstein had young girls. He has been a friend of his, a continuing friend of his for years and years.
I'm going to go back in, and what I will say is that I don't have any reason to believe right now that he's hiding the ball and everything. He's been pretty transparent.
But recent developments suggest that the strategy is, not playing out how they thought. This week, first of all, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton testified for more than 6 hours before the House Oversight Committee, emphatically denying any involvement with Epstein and blasting Republicans for fixating on her rather than asking tough questions about the man who's named more times in the Epstein files than Harry Potter is named in Harry Potter.
I don't know how many times I had to say I did not know Jeffrey Epstein. I never went to his island. I never went to his homes. I never went to his offices. So it's on the record numerous times. It then got, at the end, quite unusual because I started being asked about UFOs and a series of questions about Pizzagate, one of the most vile, bogus conspiracy theories that was propagated on the internet, that was serving as the basis of a member's questions to me.
Well, as my friend Joanne Carducci said, there's 3 people mentioned most in the Epstein files, and that's Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and Donald Trump. One of them is in prison, one of them died in prison, and one of them is the president of the United States, but we're deposing Hillary Clinton. It doesn't make any sense. At the end of the day, the government has repeatedly lied about these files. They refuse to release the full files. Then they're hiding the documents, and now they're pointing allegations everywhere except at the president, who is in the files the very most. And this is a huge distraction to use Hillary Clinton, the vicious, evil Hillary Clinton, as a distraction from what they've actually done.
And this was followed up by testimony from Bill Clinton today.
This is a historical day for the United States Congress. We have listened to people all across America who have kept up with the whole Epstein investigation and are outraged by the obvious fact that men and women, for that matter, of great power and great wealth from all across the world have been able to get away with a lot of heinous crimes. Today, we hope to be able to do as we did yesterday and continue to bring some of the most powerful people in the world in to answer questions. Again, no one's accusing anyone of any wrongdoing, but I think the American people have a lot of questions, and our House Oversight Committee is committed to getting answers.
A new precedent has been set in America today. Before this, we had the Trump rule. Trump defied, as all of you know, a congressional subpoena with the January 6th committee. He said presidents don't have to testify. Now we have the Clinton rule, which is that presidents and their families have to testify when Congress issues a subpoena. And that means that Donald Trump needs to come before our committee and explain what he knew about Epstein and explain why we have not had a full release of the documents.
And as Trump and his team have been trying to pitch this as some partisan hoax orchestrated by the Democrats, something striking happened this week. Even Republicans are publicly acknowledging that former President Bill Clinton has been very cooperative while testifying under oath before Congress about his interactions with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Again, that acknowledgement didn't come from a Democrat. It came from Representative Anna Paulina Luna.
I know you said he's being cooperative. Do you believe his statement when he said, I saw nothing and I did nothing wrong?
I'm going to go back in, and what I will say is that I don't have any reason to believe right now that he's hiding the ball and everything. He's been pretty transparent.
Republicans have now set a new precedent, which is to bring in presidents and former presidents to testify. So we're once again going to make that call that we did yesterday. We are now asking and demanding that President Trump officially come in and testify in front of the Oversight Committee. He appears in the Epstein files next to Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell almost more than anybody else. So it's time for the president to answer questions about why files are missing from the DOJ, why there's been a White House cover-up, and why we continue in that administration to call this investigation a hoax.
Now, as we've said all along on this network, whoever is in the files, whatever part of the political spectrum they find themselves on, we don't care. They should testify. These developments, they don't just put Clinton on the record. They also force a contrast with the Trump team's refusal to sit under oath, so far anyway.
It's just so interesting that Republicans were so obsessed with being there today, not making it public, yet not a single Republican, not a single one, would join us last week at the deposition of Les Wexner, who was the largest financier, the person that provided Jeffrey Epstein with almost all of his wealth. Not one could attend that deposition, yet they all came today to answer the questions over and over again.
As Secretary Clinton was answering questions, did she plead the fifth at all today?
She did not plead the fifth at any time today. She answered every single question that she was asked, which I think is appropriate, and we're glad that she did. I just think it's unfortunate that we began asking her questions about UFOs and aliens. I mean, let's be serious at this moment. We have survivors that need answers, and the truth, that's where the focus should be.
Have you heard at all about President Bill Clinton being deposed and that sets precedent for you and your family?
I don't like seeing him deposed, but, they certainly went after me a lot more than that. I don't like seeing him. Look, I like him, and I don't like seeing him deposed.
And the American people, they could not be more dissatisfied with how these files have been handled. Not to mention the fact that while millions have been released, over 2.5 million documents from the Epstein files suddenly disappeared. And it's no longer a political debate, right? It's a moral one. It's become bipartisan. It undermines the Trump administration's messaging that everything relevant has been fully released and there's, quote, nothing to hide.
I don't understand how we can just accept when we have 2.5 million documents in the ether. We don't know why we don't have them, that we are just supposed to accept the Department of Justice has always done the right thing, that they have always been following up on all these tips and making sure that all of these girls who were trafficked, that they were never trafficked to anyone outside of Jeffrey Epstein, despite their own accounts.
Polling from the Epstein Files Transparency Act shows that 58% of Americans disapprove of how Trump has handled the Epstein files, and only about a quarter approve, with nearly half saying they think it's attempting to cover up aspects of the case rather than disclose them fully. That's a damaging political reality for an administration trying to pivot away from the controversy.
And that remains true. And this call, if it did happen, corroborates exactly what President Trump has said from the beginning. And I'm sure many of you, when you read that alleged FBI report, probably thought to yourself, wow, this really cracks our narrative that we've been trying to push about this president for many years. So we're moving on from that. Reagan.
I provided the evidence today that shows that his statements were false under oath. Kash Patel's statements were false. They are in possession. They were in possession at the time, and they're still in possession of evidence that other men participated in the sex trafficking.
Attorney General Bondi didn't seem to directly answer that question. I mean, what do you make of what she did say?
She didn't answer anything. She came here just ready to talk about the Dow Jones and the NASDAQ, which seems kind of crazy to me.
And it's all the more damning when the American people are forced to sit and watch as other nations act. We've seen resignations, arrests, and potential for justice taking place in Norway, the United Kingdom. But here, the Attorney General, as I mentioned, would rather sit in front of survivors who again have said on record that nobody from the DOJ spoke to them despite attempts to provide testimony and talk. Instead, she wants to talk about the stock market.
Want to know your reaction to this news out of the UK this morning? The former Prince Andrew arrested.
Well, it offers a great contrast, I think. Look what the British government is doing in light of the evidence, and look what the United States government's doing. Nothing. Our chief law enforcement officer is defending and obstructing the investigation, Pam Bondi. And so it has been Congress in getting subpoenas and then passing bills and fighting to get this information disclosed. And our own executive, President Trump, Pam Bondi, and others are obstructing that effort. So it is refreshing that the British government is coming forward and actually, and the king is actually saying, we need to follow the law here. I wish our government were doing the same.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.